Good morning, folks. My name's David Jameson. I'm the president of the chamber, and I'm filling in for Jim Tunison today, who's got a day off. Welcome to Hot August Tuesdays. It's August the 25th, and we talked a little earlier before signing on that it's not hot yet, but it's going to be. So sit back and be ready. We've got a really interesting segment today that's going to be led by Capria. She's a Nielsen account manager. She's going to talk about consumer behavior and how it's changing right under our noses right now. She's going to talk broadly with some national numbers, and I think it's going to be very, very interesting. But before we get started with that, our sponsor for Hot August Tuesdays is Atlantic Broadband Business, and Roger Gibson's here to give us a little plug for Atlantic Broadband. Roger, take it away.
Will do. Thank you, David. Good morning, everybody. This is our last Hot August Tuesday. It's been a great month. Great sessions every Tuesday. And I feel like once I get to the end that my introductions get a little shorter. So the only plug I have is if you don't have Atlantic Broadband for your home or your business, please give us a call so we can help you all out with internet reliability, TV, and phone. Thanks, David.
Well, thanks, Roger. It's been a nice month, and we appreciate Atlantic Broadband Business for being our corporate sponsor for Hot August Tuesdays. Now let's move on to the featured presentation today. Kim Capria, I said, is a Nielsen account manager. She lives in Aiken, so she's not a stranger to our area. And Kim, I'm not going to prolong the introduction any longer. I want to hear from you, so it's your turn.
Well, thank you so much, David. And thank you, everyone, for joining at 8:30 in the morning. I can appreciate how it might seem a little bit earlier now that everyone is working from home, or most people are working from home. I really appreciate being able to speak today, and I hope you find the information that I pulled together for you valuable. I will say that I had mentioned to Jim, and I believe he's off today, but I think he has a pretty good reason. I believe he actually got married this past Sunday, so good for him. But I did put some information together, and it is more of a national view. I wanted to try to come in today with an overall view, and then hopefully, if I'm invited back, we will be getting some local data, some preliminary data on the Augusta-Aiken area next week. And hopefully, maybe sometime in October, I'll be able to come back and share some insights specific to this area, which is near and dear to our hearts. So as we are all keenly aware, the coronavirus is probably the greatest challenge any of us has faced in generations. And so really helping to provide some information as it's happening will help, I believe, companies to be able to adapt to the changing behaviors of consumers. And certainly while there is debate as to when there will become a vaccine that's approved and actually available, there really is no denying that going back to normal is not an option. It's going to become a new normal. And so those companies that are able to adapt to the changing behaviors of consumers more quickly will be able to succeed and persevere through COVID to the other side. And so with that, I don't know about you, but I'm getting tired of seeing these little circles. I think I have something like that's made out of rubber that my dog plays with, and now we see it all the time with the coronavirus in terms of what it looks like. So I rather look at this image, and I really feel like this is something that local businesses have always been very resilient, and I think our businesses here locally have been trying to do the same. And really, it's to be resilient, you really need to adapt, and that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I can give. I will say while there's certainly been some challenges across the board in many areas of business, there's also been some highlights. As I'm sure you all have probably stood in line at your nearest home improvement store, more and more people are spending money on their outdoors and even doing a lot of renovations. So there are some industries that have seen an uptick, but for the most part, many of us have had some struggles. And so with that, before we get started, just to share some information about Nielsen. We started back in 1923. It was founded by Arthur Nielsen as an engineer. And he actually started, he took a loan for $45,000 to be able to start a testing facility for conveyor belts and turbines. So a lot of stuff has changed since then. Since then, we are now measuring the what, where, when, how, and why consumers buy and how they engage with media. So we really do a lot of different forms of measurement across the board globally as well. So here in the US, across the states, local markets, as well as 100 countries. And there are 44,000 of us, and we are a publicly traded company. And as David mentioned, I am a proud resident of Aiken. I moved here to be near my parents, who moved here about 18 years ago. Really, after seeing, I think it was an AARP, it was the front cover of the horse industry here, which is really what attracted them. And so since then, I've been visiting here for the past 18 years and moved permanently last year. Before then, I was based out of New York and out of Los Angeles, working across different types of media forms, from local television to national cable to network television, as well as national radio as well. So since then, I've been working at Nielsen for the past 4 years and helping to consult newspaper businesses and their digital platforms east of the Mississippi. So that's primarily what I do. And yes, full transparency, this is a pre-COVID photo. I have a lot more gray since then, but I wanted to look a little snappy there with Arthur Nielsen. So I used the one pre-COVID. So what are we going to talk about today? Yes, COVID-19 is fueling experimentation. And when I say fueling experimentation, it really more is about the consumers experimenting. Businesses, I think, if you're going to be adapting, certainly there's some sense of experimentation if you haven't adapted in the past, but really what you want to make sure is that you have the information before you start making changes. And I can't stress that enough. So yes, how are consumers adapting, and how can you evolve your business so that you too will come through to the other side of COVID? Change is inevitable, and we all know this. Certainly Nielsen knew that. Arthur did when he started out with these conveyor belts and coming up with the first industrial market survey, which was all well and good, but as you can well imagine, conveyor belts and turbine generators are not the biggest thing since sliced bread nowadays. And certainly the occasion of the Depression forced change. And since then, he went into measuring consumer sales. So in some cases, you might need to completely evolve your business into another area where you see growth. In other instances, you might just be able to make some minor adjustments to get you through to the other side of COVID. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Certainly, you know, there have been changes throughout history, but today's rate of change is to some, it feels like the speed of light. And so being able to adapt to consumer behavior shifts quickly is important, but you want to make sure, again, that you have the knowledge to be able to make those adaptations rather than just go by your gut feeling. And so, as probably all of us can imagine, when we used to go out and enjoy downtown Aiken, most of us have really been sheltering inside the home. And so there's been a big shift from people that have been going out at night to creating an out night inside their own home. So how can businesses that are impacted by this particular sector of industry, for example, restaurants and the like, make some adjustments? So sheltering in place, whether it's families, couples, roommates, obviously consumers are ordering more food and drink online and preparing more of their own meals and learning how to entertain at home. So I think this is something that we can all agree on. We probably have all done this a bit ourselves. So how can we make some adjustments? Well, before we can make adjustments, let's take a look at what America in terms of out and about prior to COVID. So what type of restaurants and what types of foods and when were they more likely to go out prior to COVID? And this type of information, by the way, I'll also be able to showcase as it relates to our area as well when the data comes out. But as you can see, prior to COVID, the percentage of US adults that ate at any quick service restaurant was almost 9 out of every 10. And in terms of sit down restaurants, 8 out of every 10. And the percent of adults that ate at a quick service restaurant, whether it was for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, by far lunch was the biggest meal of the day as it relates to quick service restaurants. And then in terms of types of restaurants, and let me just kind of shift so I can see here. These are the types of restaurants. Again, this is across the country, with Chinese being the most typically preferred restaurant type. And you can see down the line from Chinese, Mexican, pizza, coffee houses. It runs anywhere from almost 40% down to organic and health foods at 5%. Again, this is across nationally prior to COVID. Going out across America has also changed. So prior to, over a third of consumers, adults 18 plus, would attend any professional sports event. Going to theme parks were close to 30%, the zoo 27%, and you can see on down the line live theater versus high school sports events, paid ticket music concerts, rock concerts, all the way down to health and wellness and fitness expos, job fairs, and even the circus. So we have different types of events, and this is pretty much what it looked like prior to COVID. And then going out to the movies in America, basically half have gone to the movie theaters in the past 3 months. And this has obviously drastically changed. And sports fans across America, if you're a sports fan, I know you feel it. You're waiting and hoping that you'll have a chance to be able to either watch college sports or professional sports. And attending the games itself certainly has been a huge shift, as we've all seen, with 36% prior to attending the sports events. And those that couldn't attend would go to a sports bar, purchasing sports goods and apparel. 10% adults attended college football games in the past 12 months, and another 20% attended Major League Baseball games in the past 12 months. So that's all prior to COVID. Now that most Americans are all sheltering at home and getting out a lot less frequently, except for essential items, dining at home is probably one of the biggest changes that most everyone has felt. 28% of Americans order takeout from local restaurants a lot more often. So instead of just cooking for themselves and going to the grocery stores, you've now got a higher percentage of people that perhaps might not have ordered takeout that are now ordering takeout from local restaurants. And then there's 29% that say that they're ordering about the same or before the COVID pandemic. But really there is an opportunity there to try to go after those that have restaurants, to try to appeal to them as it relates to your takeout opportunities. And one of the things that would be very helpful to know is locally, what types of payments are people most comfortable with? We are finding across the board that, for example, baby boomers that might not have been using as much high tech or as much digital they are now going online more frequently and looking at other options in terms of even getting groceries. 22% of Americans spend a lot more time shopping for groceries online. And 54% spend less time visiting the grocery store. So This is another dynamic that local businesses are going to want to know what types of payments, whether it's Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal, credit card, do they have what they need internally within their local stores to be able to take in that kind of business? And do they have, how is their digital site? Is it easy for people to stay with? A lot of folks have the attention span now that there have been mobile sites, the mobile enabled sites that are much easier to use. If your site is old and it's not easy to use, chances are you're going to lose consumers very rapidly. And so that's an area that you're going to want to improve. And if you've made these types of improvements, you want to make sure to let people know that these options are available. So it's great for those that already knew that you did takeout, but there's a whole group there that hadn't been doing takeout in the past that now are considering takeout and probably are doing takeout at other locations. And so you're going to want to make sure to let consumers know in your markets the fact that you've made improvements, that you're also very conscious of making sure that your establishment is constantly clean and that you have an easy way, an easy form for people to pay. So if you haven't been advertising in the past, now probably is one of the best times to do that because there is less clutter and people are hungry for information more than ever before. Some additional ideas, certainly the local restaurant deliveries, you know, whether folks in bigger markets may be using Instacart or Grubhub, do you have the ability to deliver your restaurant meals to homes locally? Home grocery delivery, offers and gift cards, wine subscription services. I think some of the liquor stores, even in our area, there may be some that are getting a great deal of traffic. I've heard some say that it's almost like pre-Christmas in the sense of how many people are going. But there are a number of wine and liquor establishments that maybe are not getting that business because people have traditionally gone to one place or another. So offer wine subscription services and or delivery services. Even mixed drink delivery is an option. Although Alibi, I must say that you have to make sure that you're abiding by any local laws and that's something that can be done here, which I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the Chamber of Commerce knows that, but you'll want to look into that before you just start offering mixed drink deliveries. Americans miss socially based activities. I'm sure we can all attest to that. And 61% say what they miss most is gathering with family and friends in person, although more and more people, of course, are utilizing Zoom and FaceTime. 49% say they really miss eating out at restaurants. And so what are the things that can appeal to this group? So I understand that there was, Mandy and I had spoken yesterday, and there might be some folks on the line that are in the catering business. And whether you're in the catering business specifically or even with a restaurant, certainly coming up with some themed catering ideas for small groups and families, not just big group events, may be an area to go for. People are still celebrating. Look at Jim, he still went, had his wedding. People are still graduating. People are still having other celebrations and birthday celebrations. So if they're not feeling as comfortable going out, give them the option and your restaurant fare by having some themed caterings. Restaurant pop-ups for controlled outdoor events, perhaps restaurant trucks even. If I know this has been a huge category for other markets. I'm not sure if Aiken has had that many food trucks in the past, since I've only been here since last year. But if they do have restaurant trucks, that might be another area to consider. And certainly gourmet meal and wine delivery, as well as casual deliveries. Socializing while sheltering at home. 9 in 10 Americans say that are getting together with friends a lot less often. So therefore, they're doing a lot more social media. In fact, 40% say they're using social media much more often. 2 and 3 say they appreciate businesses that go the extra mile to deliver or offer curbside pickup. You know, anytime that you can show empathy to your neighbor, frankly, much less to your consumers that you're hoping to bring in as guests, is going to go a long way. And when you're providing your messaging in any type of advertising campaign, that's one of the things that you really want to make sure that you've got your message, that you really are trying to do something to help. We were just talking this morning about the Aiken Standard and how they are now going to be also providing additional news, not only with the great news that they have here locally in Aiken, but be able to do some comparisons now because of the company that they're with by showcasing how Aiken differs from other counties in the state. And so anytime that you can show that you're making some additional extra effort to help with the local community will go a long way. More than half of consumers say they feel more favorably towards companies who are making an effort to help consumers during the outbreak. So this can't be underscored enough. Again, empathy is certainly a way to begin your advertising campaign if you haven't done any in the past, but certainly want to maintain that throughout. And then idea starters to connect. Again, most of this has to do with offering delivery or curbside pickup. Get creative with your menu options and cook at home boxes. Use social media to connect with Social American in a variety of ways, depending upon who it is specifically you're trying to target. Obviously, you're going to have messaging that's going to be different for your baby boomers versus your Gen Xers and millennials. And continue to show concern for consumers in advertising. Streaming at home. I'm not sure in terms of those that have joined today, if any of you have signed up for more streaming capabilities, or if you find that you've been watching more by streaming, but certainly 60% of Americans are using streaming services more often. And just comparing the same time last year in terms of streaming in the amount of minutes streamed, it went from 70 billion minutes to 161 billion for this during the COVID pandemic in terms of minutes being streamed of shows. And nowadays, there's just so many different ways of getting content. It's amazing how it seems like every year consumers are spending more time either watching news or entertainment or reading news or listening to news, but they're spending more time with media. And so that means they're spending less time sleeping. At this point in time, I know this year it's exceeded 12 hours a day engaged in media. I think last year was like 11 and a half hours. And so there's really been a shift with more and more media consumption because of more and more options. And like I said, it must be that they're sleeping less or working less. So I'm hoping for the employers that it's sleeping less. And so as I mentioned at the top of the hour, again, this is just a snippet of the type of information that we do have available. I really felt like a lot of our local restaurants might be able to benefit from this information to get an overview in terms of what's happening. But obviously it would help to have information locally. And so we will have local news, streaming and shopping updates as it relates to Aiken, as well as Augusta and other markets across the country. We're in all 208 markets in the US, and we do have this capability. So I'd love to be here and at another time to be able to help you all, but also we'll make sure that you have my contact information in case you'd like to reach out for any other information as I look to help my fellow neighbors and businesses here in the Aiken area. So if I can leave you with one major point, and that is, and I think this quote was made back in the early 1930s, and it still is very applicable in today's environment. And that is, the price of light is less than the cost of darkness. Information is key to being able to make adjustments. And like I said, I want to try to help as much as I can. By all means, Mandy, I'll make sure that, and David, that you have my contact information. And if I can't help you, I'll try to find someone else that can. But please, in the meantime, are there any questions that I can help with at this point?
Anyone have a question? Everybody's been bashful, Kim.
I hear that, and I know this isn't a bashful group.
Those were really some great slides. I appreciate that, and it helped. It helps when you go by the numbers like that and you really realize what the shifts have been and where we're heading. You know, I'm seeing so many businesses pivoting right now, trying to find that new sweet spot, trying to figure out where to put resources and energy. And I think that you've shown us some of those examples of how that is being impacted. And I believe that even though you were showing national information, it certainly feels like it applies to Aiken right down the line. Mm-hmm. We're an older community, so I believe there's been a desire for people to try to be safer, and our numbers are down, and I think it's proving that. But it's also changing consumer purchasing habits. My wife and I, for the first time, have ordered groceries online. You know, we were slow adapters. We were slow to the party, mm-hmm. And I even ordered something online from one of the big boxes. And had them put it in the back of my car because I was not going to go in there. So,
there you go.
So I think some of it is, as far as the consumers have encouraged to figure out what they're willing to try and what services they need. And now there's a convenience to that. Mm-hmm. There's an article in today's Aiken Standard again about the fact that churches may never be the same because people have found it very convenient to go to church in their lazy boy while wearing their pajamas. So have y'all seen any numbers about COVID clothes, the rise in consumer spending on COVID clothes? That means elastic waist.
Oh, I don't know if we get down to the elastic waist, but I hear what you're saying because I find it myself. Yes, people are certainly cooking more frequently than they have ever before. And then after a while, you know, at some point in time, you love doing the cooking, but sometimes again, you don't want to have to cook. And so that's why for the restaurants, yes, there's some that are going out to the restaurants, but I think there's definite room to be known for other things besides actually going to the restaurant. And like I said, the pop-ups are a good example because people are feeling more comfortable by going outside and catering, being able to do catering events. That used to be more of a hotel type of thing, but I think restaurants could get more involved with that. And certainly having a better understanding for businesses, for people working from home. I mean, we have a whole session just on working from home, and while some company owners may have felt a little bit like maybe their people might not be working as hard, they're finding the absolute opposite, that people are actually appreciating being able to work from home and are more productive at home because like we talked about at the beginning of the hour, that people are starting earlier or they're working late. You know, now you're having the difficulty of the life balance, but I'm sure that'll balance out as well. But yeah, there's a lot of changes that are happening. If companies are making changes and they're finding that it works, well, let more people know about it. And so while you might not have considered advertising in the past because you didn't have to, really now is the time to do it. And there's plenty of stories of companies that during the Great Depression, for example, I showed you how Arthur completely pivoted his business. But even in the cereal business back then, when it was just starting, both Kellogg's and Post, for example, were the major cereal companies. And Post decided that they were going to hold back their advertising. And Kellogg's said, I think this is a good time for me to advertise. And ever since then, Post has never been able to catch up with its market share. So if you're the restaurant that stands out because you're actually doing more things, whether or not people end up gravitating to having the gourmet meals at home, the fact that they know that you'll consider that when they're thinking of their next birthday party. My father turned 80 last year, and unfortunately there was a death in the family, so we weren't able to celebrate the way we normally would have. And now to be able to do that, to celebrate his birthday, it's kind of difficult. You don't want to go to a restaurant, but maybe what you do is you have a catered tent and you have just family in, and you just have a more special type of celebration. And those are the types of adjustments that the consumers are making. So let consumers know that you're there to help them with those types of decisions.
Any more questions from folks?
This is Carrie, and I just want to thank you so much, Kim. Your slides are very helpful, especially since I'm in the catering business here at USC Aiken. And, we've opened up classes and we've got the kids coming on campus and we're feeding them and we're having to serve everything, and it's going really great. And we're finding too that what small caterings we're getting into, most people are ordering a lot of boxed breakfasts and lunches and dinners and things like that. So, but you gave me some great ideas. Thank you so much. And like David said, those slides were excellent, and I really appreciate the information.
Oh, wonderful, Carrie. I'm glad to help in any way.
Anyone else want to chime in?
David, this is Kirk McGowan.
Yes.
I had a question for Kim and possibly for you. My concern that I see for smaller towns like Aiken is an erosion of the tax base if this COVID issue continues much longer. Kim, do you see any municipalities that are trying to adjust their tax base or make moves toward maintaining the existing revenue flows?
That I'm sure we probably measure that. That's not an area that I am involved in, but I can certainly look into one of our groups to see if there is something, perhaps there's a white paper on what different municipalities are doing. That's a great question. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer right now, but I can certainly look into that for you, Kirk.
I think the information that I have is that Aiken City business licenses have stayed about the same. There has been no fall off, no drop off yet. Obviously, accommodations tax might be a little off, and sales tax are probably off a little, and hospitality tax is probably off a little, but they haven't seen the major slide, the dips that we were anticipating. So Aiken is holding on pretty well right now in those areas. And it's because we haven't had much unemployment, and our major economic engine, the Savannah River site, has continued to operate during this entire time. And so that's 12,000 very good jobs for this region, and it's really helped us get through this. So I'm not seeing a fall off in municipal revenues at the moment. And as the city came into its new budget, they run a fiscal year that starts in July. Their 2021 budget is very conservative to make sure that they were not trying to overestimate revenues. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape here.
Thank you.
So I think we're at the end of our time. This has certainly been an interesting presentation. We haven't talked about it, but even chambers of commerce are trying to rewrite our playbook and trying to figure out what our members need and what they want. We did a survey earlier this month that's certainly not as sophisticated as a Nielsen survey, but what it told us is that, or what our members told us, is that they want in-person events. So in September, you'll see the AikenChamber stepping out with 4 in-person events. If you're comfortable with those and want to try it, we'd love to see you. We think there'll be a lot of smiles behind those face masks, and we look forward to seeing you. Kim, thank you so much. Roger Gibson from Atlantic Broadband, we appreciate you being the sponsor of this series. And obviously we'll see you before we get to the next cycle of August Tuesdays in 2021. So over and out. Goodbye now.
Bye-bye,
David.
everybody. Take
Thanks,
care.
Kim.
You're welcome.